this lecture, we will learn all about the self-serving bias, self-handicapping, and self-presentation. Self-serving bias is the tendency to perceive oneself favorably. Self-serving attributions is a form of self-serving bias, the tendency to attribute positive outcomes to oneself and negative outcomes to other factors. Now, the self-serving attributional bias is to make external attributions for bad things that one does, but internal attributions for good things one does. In other words, people are quick to take credit for their successes and blame the situation for their failures, a biased way of viewing reality that helps people maintain high levels of self-esteem. Now, what are the consequences of making self-serving attributions for our own behaviors? Some research suggests that bias helps support mental health. For example, self-serving attributions seem to work well with preserving self-esteem and are more common among well-adjusted people. Individuals suffering from depression tend not to make self-serving attributions, viewing themselves as equally responsible for their successes and their failures. So some level of self-serving bias in attributions is probably useful for mental health. However, this bias may interfere with an accurate understanding of poor outcomes. This is a problem because understanding the true causes of one's poor outcomes is often very helpful in improving one's outcomes in the future. Okay, now, to understand self-preservation, we must discuss self-handicapping. So, how do people manage their self-presentation? Well, self-handicapping is protecting one's self-image with behaviors that create a handy excuse for later failure. In other words, people set up excuses to protect their self-esteem from a failure that may happen in the future. All right, so in a strategy known as self-handicapping, people set up excuses to protect their self-esteem from failure that may occur in the future. Can you think of a way that you perhaps have done that in the past? Okay, so suppose you decide to go out to a bar, stay out really late, and get wasted the night before an important exam. How would that be a preemptive strategy to protect your self-esteem? If you fail the test, you can say, well, it's because I had this killer hangover from getting plastered the night before. And if you happen to do well, this makes your success all the more remarkable. That way, even though you're doing something likely to hinder or handicap your own performance, you can attribute your failure to the excuse, which is you partying the night before, and keep your self-esteem intact. So again, self-handicapping is protecting one's self-image with behaviors that create a handy excuse for later failure. In other words, people set up excuses to protect their self-esteem from a failure that may happen in the future. Now, self-presentation is the act of expressing oneself and behaving in ways designed to create a favorable impression or an impression that corresponds to one's ideals. Now, Self-preservation refers to our wanting to present a favorable image, both to an external audience, which are the other people, and to an internal audience, which basically are ourselves. There are three goals of self-presentation: to protect one's self-image, to provide meaning, and to foster self-improvement. So let's expand on this a little bit. Why is self-presentation so prevalent and so important? We often use self-presentation to achieve specific goals, such as getting a job, impressing a date, and so on. Can you think of some ways that you have used specific goals in getting what you want? But self-presentation is more than that. Again, it serves three broader goals. One is to convey and protect our desired self-image. A second goal is to support the meaningfulness of social interactions by properly enacting the cultures, scripts, and roles. Finally, self-presentation also serves self-important and personal growth. Goffman in 1959 noted that people often use idealization to convey a best-case view of oneself to others. To quote the sociologist Charles Horton Cooley, if we never tried to seem a little bit better than we are, how could we improve or train ourselves from the outside inward? In my next lecture, we will learn all about social beliefs and judgments.